Welcome to the review and preview problems 956 to 963 in the CCG CPM book. 956. Consider the two similar solids below. Letter A says, create a map plan and draw the front, right, and top views for the solid on the left. So the solid on the left is this piece right here. So when we draw the front view, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So we have a 4 by 4. When we draw our right view, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So our right view looks like that. And when we draw our top view, we have 2 in the back and 2 right here. So we have a map plan that looks like this. What is the linear scale factor between the two solids? Well, I notice that my front adds 1 row to the right and to the left. Same thing is true when looking at my top view. It is doubled. And same thing is true when looking at my right view. It is also doubled. So we would say the scale factor between the two solids is 2. Find the surface area of each solid. What is the ratio of the surface areas? How is this ratio related to the linear scale factor? So the surface area is how many of these squares can we see? So when we look, we can do this a couple of different ways. We can count all of the surface areas by looking at our solids. And we know that our smaller surface area is 24. So 24 units squared. Looking at our larger surface area, if we multiply that, remember you need to, our linear scale factor is 2, so when we're talking area, you need to square the 2. So 24 times 2 squared would be 96 units squared for our larger solid. So when we look at our, 96. When we look at our ratio, if we put 96 over 24, we get a ratio of 4. And that is simply the square of the linear scale factor of 2. Now find the volume of each solid. How are the volumes related? Compare this to the linear scale factor and record your observations. So the volume for our littler solid, we can look at this and see that there are 6 cubes. So we have 6 units cubed. And then if we look at our larger solid, we have 48 units cubed. So when we find the ratio of these two volumes, if we take 48 and divide it by 6, we get a ratio of 8, which is our linear scale factor cubed. So 2 cubed is equal to 8. 9-57. Elliot has a modern fish tank that is in the shape of an oblique prism, shown below. If the slant of the prism makes a 60-degree angle with the flat surface on which the prism is placed, find the volume of water the tank can hold. Assume that each base is a rectangle. So when we're finding volume, we need base times width times height. So we can find the area of our base, which is 7 times 13, which would be 91 inches squared. But then we need to find the height of our prism. If our slant height is 12 inches, we can find our height of our prism using our opposite side over our hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse is our sine function. So the sine of 60 degrees equals x over 12. To get x by itself, we multiply by 12, which gives us approximately about 10.4. So we'll say about 10.4 inches. So when we multiply that, we have 7 times 13 times 10.4, which gives us about, remember it's not equal to because we rounded our decimal, 945.7 cubic inches. And you can also write that inches to the third power. If Elliot has 25 fish, how crowded are the fish? That is, what is the density of fish measured in number of fish per cubic inch? So if we have 25 fish and our tank is 945.7 cubic units, that tells us that for every 1 cubic inch, if we divide that, they have approximately 0.026 of a fish per cubic inch. C says, what is the density of fish in Elliot's tank in fish per cubic foot? So when we take our 25 fish over our 945.7 inches cubed for our water, we need to multiply that by knowing there are 12 inches in 1 foot. But because we're talking inches cubed here, we need to multiply 3 times by 12 inches per 1 foot, which will give us approximately 45.68 fish per 1 cubic foot. 9-58 says, decide if the following statements are true or false. If they are true, explain how they know. If they are false, provide a counterexample. Letter A says, if a quadrilateral has 2 sides that are parallel and 2 sides that are congruent, then the quadrilateral must be a parallelogram. Well, this would be a false statement because an isosceles triangle, an isosceles trapezoid has parallel sides and 2 sides that are congruent, which is not a parallelogram. If, letter B says, if the interior angle of a polygon adds up to 360 degrees, then the polygon must be a quadrilateral. So this is true, and if you think of any polygon that has 3 triangles in it, it would have 4 sides. 2 triangles. It would have 4 sides because 180 and 180 is 360. If a quadrilateral has 3 right angles, then the quadrilateral must be a rectangle. This is also a true statement. If the diagonals of a quadrilateral bisect each other, then the quadrilateral must be a rhombus. Well, we also know that a parallelogram is a quadrilateral and its diagonals also bisect each other. So we would say this is false because we could potentially have a parallelogram. 9-59 says write and solve an equation based on the geometric relationship shown below. So knowing that our sides are congruent, we can assume that our base is 2 times, this is 2 times the base of our smaller triangle. So if we write 2 times 12x plus 7 and set that equal to 30x minus 4, 2 times 12 is 24x plus 14. Subtract 24x gets us 6x minus 4 is equal to 14. Inverse operation of subtraction is addition. 18 is equal to 6x. Divide by 6 and x is equal to 3 units. Solve each equation and check your solution. So let's take a look at A first. 20 minus 6 times 5 plus 2x equals 10 minus 2x. 20, first distribute. Negative 6 times 5 is negative 30. Negative 6 times 2x is negative 12x. 20 minus 30 is negative 10. Inverse operation, I'm going to add my 12x. Remember, there's several things you can do, but you should still end up with the same answer. Inverse of a positive 10 is negative. Negative 20 is equal to 10x. Inverse of multiplication is division. X is equal to negative 2. You can quickly plug negative 2 back in for all of your x's and see it gives you a true statement. So our solution is in fact correct. When we solve B, we have 2x squared minus 9x minus 5 equals 0. I noticed that it is a quadratic equation. So the first thing that I am going to do is see if it factors. There is no greatest common factor. So I'm going to use my generic rectangle. My diagonals multiply to get negative 10x squared. My linear term goes in the bottom. I know that 10x times 1x gives me 10x squared. If I make my 10 negative, I get negative 10x squared in the top, negative 9x when I add them together. So I'm going to move those terms over here. Look for my dimensions. Negative 5 and negative 10x are both divisible by negative 5. Negative 5 times 1 equals negative 5. 1 times x. And 2x times x equals 2x squared. So when you write your dimensions, you have 2x plus 1 times x minus 5 equals 0. Set those both equal to 0 and solve. So x equals 5, or x equals negative 1/2. When you plug both of those solutions back in, you get a true statement. When we look at letter C, we have 3 over 5x minus 1 is equal to 1 over x plus 1. We can use inverse operations. The inverse of division is multiplication. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So a lot of us think of this as cross multiplying. Distribute my 3, so I get 3x plus 3 equals 5x minus 1 when I distribute my 1. Inverse operations, combine your like terms. Four equals 2x, divide by 2, x equals 2. When I look at my last problem, or the absolute value problem, the absolute value is isolated. After your absolute value is isolated, you split it into two cases. 2x minus 1 equals 5. 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. Use your inverse operations. 2x equals 6. 2x equals negative 4. X equals 3. X equals negative 2. And when you plug both of those in, you get true statements as well. 9-61, a new car is purchased for $27,000. It loses 15% each year. So we know 15% as a decimal is 0.15. But in exponential decay, we want to do 1 minus 0.15. So we get 0.85. What is the multiplier? So our multiplier is 0.85. Write the function of the form f of t equals a times b to the t power that represents the situation. A is your initial value. B is your multiplier for an exponential equation. So we have f of t equals 27,000 times 0.85 to the t power. At the current rate, what will the value of the car be after 5 years? 27,000 times 0.85 raised to the 5th power tells us that the car is approximately $11,980. 9-62 says, examine the information provided in each diagram below. Decide if each figure is possible or not possible. If the figure is not possible, explain. So looking at my triangle here, I know that this is a supplementary angle. So x plus 120 needs to equal 180. So I know that x is 60 degrees. If I add my interior of my triangle together, it needs to equal 180, which this does. So this is possible. When I look at B, I have two parallel lines. So my two angles on the inside should add up to 180 degrees. So this is not possible because these do not equal 180. When we look at this, we have alternate angles that equal 54 degrees. We then have these two angles are also alternate interior angles if these lines are parallel, and one equals 71 and one equals 72. So this is not possible either. 9-63 is multiple choice. For angles ABE is congruent to BEF in the diagram below, what must be true? Well, in order for these two things to be congruent, line segment AC must be parallel to line segment DF, so D must be true. And then line angle ABE must also be congruent to angle GBC, so B is also true.